me a guy who knows the Kennedy family very well. His name is David Nassau. He is a emeritus professor of history at the City University of New York and author of the book, The Remarkable Life and Turbulent Times of Joseph P. Kennedy, the patriarch of the Kennedy family. All right, Professor. I know the family, you know the family, we know their history. I wrote a book called Killing Kennedy. Robert Kennedy Jr., I agree with him on nutrition. I agree with him that the health system in America is corrupted by big food companies and others. I agree a big change needs to be made. Kennedy is on board with all of that. But Kennedy is a conspiracy guy who cannot back up what he says, and I think that disqualifies him. What say you?
I couldn't agree more. Bobby Kennedy Jr., look, I'm a biographer, not a psychoanalyst. So I look at the facts that are there. He was 9 when his uncle was assassinated. He was 14 when his father was assassinated. He was a pallbearer at his father's funeral. He began heroin a year later. That's what he tells us. This is the problem. You put together trauma with overwhelming confidence because he's a Kennedy. He went to Harvard. And you combine those two with his sense that he has a destiny. He's got to fulfill his father's promise. He's got to be a great man. And you put those three together and it just doesn't work.
Well, let me play devil's advocate here. It can work. I mean, to try to top your father and do good in public service, that's a motivator.
That would be great. Yeah.
Yeah. So where is the divergence of him into the dark zone, in your opinion?
Okay, it's a great question. I think what happens is that when his father and his uncle are killed, he begins not to trust anything he's heard. He doesn't trust the Warren Commission, and he says his father didn't trust the Warren Commission. He doesn't trust anything that he hears from the media, from politicians, from Washington about what happened to Uncle and what happened to Daddy. And then that distrust, that disbelief is transformed into this sense that somehow the media and the government are keeping quiet because they had something to do with it. He's got no evidence. In your Killing Kennedy, you say, Oswald, that we don't know everything, but you don't invent out of thin air conspiracy
No,
theories.
It's a fact-based book. Oswald did it. There's no question he did it. Whether there was somebody helping him or something, we'll see. But here's my point about Kennedy. Kennedy has very cleverly done two things. He made a deal with Trump. And to Trump's, I think, credit, Trump honors the deals. He could have thrown Kennedy overboard. I don't think he's got a lot of emotion invested in RFK. If RFK goes down, Trump will have somebody else. But he made a deal. You get out, you endorse me, I'll get you into the health department because that's where you want to be. That's number one. Number two, Kennedy tapped into the anti-vax movement, which is big in America. It's not just Kennedy who doesn't trust the government. It's millions of Americans who don't trust it. Correct?
Absolutely. But what worries me is that Kennedy says we need good science. Well, on some things we don't have good science. On fluoride in the drinking water, there's controversy. That has to be looked into. But on the polio vaccine, he says that the polio vaccine killed more people than polio did. On the COVID vaccine, on the measles vaccine, I mean, he is going to do irreparable harm. I mean, there are already fewer parents getting measles, mumps, chickenpox vaccines for their kids. And I mean, that is dangerous. That is
But I
really
don't think
dangerous.
he's going to have the kind of power to do anything unilaterally because the White House is going to run everything. Kennedy will do what he's told. And he said as much. Kennedy said as
Yeah,
much
I
in the
mean,
hearings. Whatever they
he's
tell me
been
to do,
very
I'm going
clear
to
on
do.
that.
Right.
He's been very
But,
clear on that.
right. But my posture is that if you're a president, you get the best. Yeah, okay, Trump wants to run everything from the White House, and that's what he's going to do. But you get the best to administrate what you want. And I just don't see RFK as the best. Last word.
He's not the best. He doesn't have the experience. He doesn't have the temperament. He doesn't have the skill set. There are, there are lots of people who could carry out the Trump agenda and do it with less hysteria, with less pushback than Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I
I made
agree,
the
as you said,
suggestion. I
it was
said
a
it was last.
mistake.
Right. But I would, if I were Trump and I had made that deal with Kennedy, and I understand why Trump did it and it was a smart deal to make, I would appoint Kennedy the nutrition czar. So he just goes around and tells people how to get healthier with no cabinet position. He doesn't need to be confirmed by the Senate. You wouldn't object to that, would you?
No, it would have made perfect sense. He has
Yeah, that's fine.
he
Give
has
him
to
the
say
nutrition because
things.
he's right about that. All right,
He's
Professor,
right
pleasure to
about
talk with you. And thanks for reading Killing Kennedy. I appreciate you reading the book, and we'll talk again soon, I hope. Kennedy should be up or down this week. Tulsi Gabbard up or down this week. Gabbard hurt herself about the Snowden stuff, no doubt about it. Can't call that. Kash Patel is no date yet. I do think Patel is going to get in. Now, here's an outrageous story. As you heard, George Soros bought Odyssey Radio. Okay? He owns it. Odyssey is a company that has stations all across the USA. One of them is KCBS Radio in San Francisco. KCBS Radio is actively putting ICE agents in danger by broadcasting where they are actually in the Bay Area. Roll the tape.
The county's response network says agents in San Jose were in unmarked vehicles, including a black Dodge Durango, a gray Nissan Maxima, and white Nissan truck. ICE agents were also reported outside a residence on South White and Tully Roads, and officers were reportedly at the target on King and Story Road. Stay with KCBS. We'll be tracking it for you.
If I were the FCC, I'd immediately suspend the license of KCBS. The guy's name is Brett Burkhart, but I'm sure he was just following orders, the broadcaster. I think this is a crime. I think what the KCBS did there is a crime because the radio station is putting federal agents in danger. Telling people are at a target. Somebody shows up, some nut. I mean, come on, giving descriptions of their automobiles. This is the kind of stuff that the Trump administration should be right on. Boom. You can take action against KCBS, real strong action. We'll keep on it. That's out. I've never heard anything like that. Many of us are trying to get our finances in order to start the new year right. And that's great news for homeowners. Interest rates have dropped and are now in the 5s. So if you've been burned with high interest rate credit card debt, it's time to break free. American Financing can help you access the cash in your home to pay off your high interest debt. Last year, their salary-based mortgage consultants helped customers save an average of $800 a month. That's like giving yourself a $10,000 raise. What a way to start the new year. And if you begin today, you may be able to delay 2 mortgage payments. So please call American Financing today, 800-906-2440. That's 800-906-2440. AmericanFinancing.net. All right. The migrant controversy among Christians. This is a fascinating story. So as you know, I'm a Roman Catholic. All right. And you might also know that I admire Pope Francis. I think he is a good man. I know what happened to him in Argentina when he was archbishop there, and the fascist government brutalized him and almost killed him. I understand his liberation theology. I got Pope Francis. I met him. I think he's a good person, but he's naive, in my opinion. All right? He doesn't understand how the migrant situation is negatively impacting so many people. This is just my opinion. Then a Pope has a book out, brand new book, it's on a bestseller list, and my book's been there for 5 months, so that I follow that. The book's called Hope, the Autobiography by Pope Francis. In the book, he basically lays out that how people should conduct themselves. Earlier, he said this on August 28th, 2024, quote, "Brothers and sisters, we can all agree on one thing. Migrants should not be in those seas and in the lethal deserts. But it's not through more restrictive laws. It is not with the militarization of borders. It is not with the rejection that we will obtain this result. Instead, we will obtain it by extending safe and legal access routes for migrants, providing refuge for those who flee from war, violence, persecution, and various disasters. We will obtain it by promoting in every way a global governance of migration based on justice, fraternity, and solidarity," unquote. Well, it sounds good, but it's impossible, because mass migration negatively impacts the countries where it is out of control. And the Pope should know that. Joining us now is Dr. Edward Fazer. He is a professor of philosophy at Pasadena City College in Los Angeles. He is a Roman Catholic. So where am I going wrong here in my analysis, first of all, of the Pope?
I don't think you are going wrong, Bill. I think you're correct. The Pope and other churchmen, bishops and priests and Catholic writers and so on, rightly emphasize that the Catholic tradition has always said that we need to welcome migrants, especially those fleeing war and terrible economic conditions and so on. But there's another aspect of the Church's teaching, and it's still represented in the Catechism of the Catholic Church. You see it represented in statements from Pope John Paul II and Benedict XVI and so on, that notes that this need to welcome the migrant is not absolute, that there are conditions on it. In particular, as the Catechism says, the governments of countries that migrants want to enter have a right to put conditions on immigration. And migrants have the responsibility also to follow the laws of whatever country it is that they want to migrate to. These are aspects of the Church's teaching that are long-standing, but that often go unmentioned in contemporary discussion of this issue. So
that's because there's a disagreement, though. That's because there's an internal disagreement, not only in the Catholic Church, but Protestant sects as well, about how to handle migrants. So the politics of it, Doctor, has almost overwhelmed the theological aspect of it, because there are Catholic priests and bishops who understand that you have to render to Caesar in the sense that you have to obey the established law of the country, unless it's a law that goes against human nature, which immigration law, if it's spelled out, doesn't. But it seems to me that this is almost more a political debate within the Catholic Church than a theological debate.
I think it's degenerated into that, and I think the motivations for it are several, and it depends on who we're talking about here. With some people, I think there's an honest disagreement within Catholic circles about how to apply the relevant theological principles, and there are those who would say, "Hey, we recognize that migrants have the duty to obey the law. We recognize that you can't take everybody in and so on, but we simply think we can take in more than, say, the Trump administration thinks." Okay, so there are people who are looking at it from that point of view. There are some people who are looking at it from a more a hard, progressive political point of view, and masquerade what's really a personal political opinion under the guise of Catholic theology, and pretend that they're simply implementing what the Church requires every Catholic to go along with, and that's not correct. And there are yet others, I think, who are motivated by something else. Even the most conservative churchmen often feel tremendous pressure because in their public statements on matters of doctrine, they always have to come across as, quote, the bad guy from the point of view of the mainstream media when they're talking about questions about abortion or sexual morality or what have you. So there's a very strong temptation wherever they can to try to say something that's progressive. And issues like migration give them an opportunity to do that. They give them an opportunity to say something that, at long last sounds like it's acceptable to the mainstream. Um, and again, the problem is that this temptation gives way to presenting a one-sided statement and presentation of the church's teaching.
Do you think that Pope Francis and the bishops in America understand the backlash from people who want immigration law upheld and understand the destruction that the Biden administration reaped by the open border? Do you think that Pope Francis in the Vatican understands a tremendous backlash against Catholic Charities, for example, and other liberal institutions? And you pile that on the pre-scandals, and you have the church weakening here in America in a very significant way. Do you think the Pope recognizes that?
I would suspect he does not. I think there's a tendency for the Pope and other churchmen to think in terms of, longstanding cliches that exist in their mind about what those on the other side are motivated by. And so there's kind of a reflexive tendency just to dismiss concerns about immigration as if they could only be motivated by racism, say, and not to hear out the actual arguments, the actual views of those who
Well, there's
want to
suffering.
enforce longstanding
There
immigration
are
law.
people. There are people suffering because of the open border, and they're never mentioned by the
Yeah.
Catholic Church. Now, let's
Right.
extend it into the evangelical. Look, the Protestants are all over the place. You got the Unitarians, and wherever it goes, and they're, let everybody in, and then you got Episcopals, a very left wing. I'm generalizing now. But the evangelicals are conservative. They're conservative Christians. And it doesn't seem that these churches get a lot of publicity. It's all around the Catholics because the Catholic Charities does administer to migrants and gets $1.5 million, which is nothing, public funding to do so. But where do you think the Protestants come down on this?
Well, it varies. It varies from Protestant to Protestant. But even outside the old mainline liberal churches, you do find those in the evangelical realm who are, say, critical of Trump administration policy. And there, too, I think at least part of the motivation is, as I said, was true of, I think, a lot of Catholic churchmen, is that they're so often perceived as the bad guy by.
No, I know they want to moderate it, but evangelicals
exactly,
they went heavy for Trump. I mean, they went heavy for him. So I'll have to do a little more study because I'm much more familiar with the Pope and the battle inside the Catholic Church. And it is a very troubling question. I'm going to tell you one more thing that a few years ago, Cardinal Dolan, the most powerful cleric in America, came to me and said, I got a big problem with migrants because some of them are here illegally, some of them aren't, but most of them, almost all of them, are poor. And we have an opportunity to buy housing for them in Brooklyn. Can you help? And I did, big time. And I did it not for any political reason whatsoever. I did it because that's my mandate to help. And I didn't ask how many illegals do you have, how many, I didn't ask any of those questions. And I'm happy I helped. I don't regret that. Last word.
Well, I think what you're doing is implementing in your own personal life, the way we all are supposed to, the church's moral principles governing immigration. But the thing is, the problem with this issue is that there are two elements to balance. On the one hand, the need to welcome migrants, but also the need to follow the law and to protect the borders of our country. We've had so much irresponsibility now for 4 years with people pouring over that it's no surprise that any remedy is going to seem excessive, even if it's really just trying to remedy the chaos of the last 4 years. And so what I think churchmen need to recognize is that there is room for reasonable disagreement here among Catholics.
Well, and I wish the Pope, I wish somebody in the Vatican would step up and say there is another side to this, because they don't. Hey, Doctor, we appreciate it very much. Thanks for helping us out today. Last year, investors scored the highest profits in decades. Unfortunately, the rest of us were held back by stacks of bills and credit card debt. Well, Done with Debt has found a solution. They created a brilliant new strategy designed to tackle debt, put cash back into your hands. so you can finally save, invest, and live your life in comfort. Done with Debt goes head to head with credit card and loan companies. Their team of negotiators and legal experts work to significantly reduce your bills, eliminate interest, and erase penalties. Bottom line, Done with Debt helps turn crushing debt into financial freedom. But some of their strategies are time sensitive, so please don't wait. Get the life you deserve. Visit donewithdebt.com. Talk with one of their strategists, absolutely free. Visit donewithdebt.com, donewithdebt.com. Are you worried about the IRS collecting and unsavory tactics by that group? Tax Network USA, the nation's premier tax relief firm, can help you. They've already negotiated more than $1 billion in tax relief for their clients. Their services include penalty forgiveness, hardship programs, which can delay payments until your tax debt expires, and lump sum settlement options through offer in compromise. Whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, their experts are ready to assist you. Even if you're behind on taxes due to missing records, Tax Network USA can guide you through the process. Tax season long over, and for the IRS, that means it's collection season now. So to schedule a complimentary consultation, please call 800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/bill. Don't let the IRS aggressive tactics control you. Take charge of your financial future. Visit tnusa.com/bill today. USAID. So for years, those of us who study the federal government understood the billions and billions of dollars that have been wasted by sending money overseas to ridiculous countries doing ridiculous things. Sorry, that's the truth. These are tax dollars. We have a $37 trillion debt, and we're sending billions of dollars to countries that do stupid stuff. Much of that money is stolen. One word, Haiti. All right. $40 billion under Biden's last year was given to U.S. aid. $40 billion. Now Trump says it's going to stop. And he's putting almost every employee of that agency on leave. The only ones that aren't getting booted are the mission critical staff, whatever that is. It's about 10,000 bureaucrats work for U.S. aid. 10,000. For what? So Trump is just dismantling. He can't ban the agency. Congress has to do that, but he can make it impossible for the agency to function, which is what is happening. Now, let me give you 3 examples of where our tax money goes. The first one is Helping Hand for Relief. It's a Muslim charity based in Michigan, okay? And it got more than $100,000 in tax money. And some of it, according to the Washington Examiner, wound up in the hands of the jihadists because nobody's watching it. Second, Marie Stopes International. That is an abortion place. They got $14 million to provide some kind of abortion thing. It's murky, to people in Zimbabwe. Can you believe this? In Zimbabwe, American tax dollars, $14 million. And the final, Tajikistan. Look at it on the map. Nobody knows where it is. Okay, 1 million so that some Tajiks who have disabilities can become, quote unquote, climate leaders. You think I'm making it sound like a Saturday Night Live skit, right? I'm not making it up. So Trump goes in and goes, we got to stop this. And I'm saying, my remarks now are for you liberal people out there. Do you object to that? Do you object to $40 million of taxpayer money being sent God knows where for nothing? I object to it. Do you? Oh, my God. All right, back home. Super Bowl week. I'll make my prediction tomorrow. I didn't go because I knew it was going to be a zoo in New Orleans. New Orleans is one of my favorite towns, although it's very corrupt and very poor and very dangerous. There's a lot of miscreants running around that town. But that's not why I didn't go. I knew that the logistics were going to be impossible. And now Trump's going. I don't even know how you're going to get into the Superdome there for the game. Anyway, Roger Goodell is the commissioner of the National Football League. And he held a press conference this week, and it was all about DEI. Go.
We got into diversity efforts because we felt it was the right thing for the National Football League. And we're going to continue to those efforts because we've not only convinced ourselves, I think we've proven ourselves that it does make the NFL better. So we're not in this because it's a trend to get in it or a trend to get out of it. Our efforts are fundamental in trying to attract the best possible talent into the National Football League, both on and off the field, as I said previously. And we see that.
Okay, so I wrote a message of the day on BillO'Reilly.com. Again, we hope you go there every morning. It's free. You don't have to sign up for anything. And I said, look, there really isn't any DEI in the National Football League. So the only rule they have is called a Rooney Rule, where if a team has an opening for the head coach, they have to interview an African-American candidate. They don't have to hire the person, just have to interview him. Seems reasonable to me, all right? But on the field, the woke DEI stuff means nothing, because if you can't perform, you're gone. You know, it doesn't matter what your color is. 53% of all the players are African-American. Okay, they deserve to be there. Because believe me, those teams aren't putting people on the field because they're woke. And another interesting thing that since 2021 in the end zone, there's been a big message on the turf, end racism. Well, that's gone. So Goodell is moving that out. He's going to replace it with choose love and it takes all of us. And look, that doesn't bother me. None of this bothers me. What did bother me was the kneeling. That was disrespectful to the country, to the fans, and it made the United States look bad all over the world. Goodell knocked that out behind the scenes. He'll never tell you that, but I know it to be true. Smart life. So Donald Trump, I mean, the guy, Sakanaw doesn't even come close. We're into now week 3 of his administration, and he's picking fights with everybody, including the Bank of America, the huge Bank of America. Roll the tape.
I hope you start opening your bank to conservatives, because many conservatives complain that the banks are not allowing them to do business within the bank, and that included a place called Bank of America. They don't take conservative business.
No, that's a little overstated, but the Bank of America is a very liberal outfit. And I don't care. I don't bank at the Bank of America. And I don't care what their political philosophy is. But there have been times when, particularly gun owners, when a bank has a credit card and it sees that somebody purchases a firearm, all right, and then it reports it. No. Now, I'm not accusing Bank of America of doing that because I don't know, but that has happened. So a friend of mine is involved with Old Glory Bank. Old Glory Bank. Now, we did a segment on this with Larry Elder, the commentator, about a year ago, maybe a little bit longer. So Old Glory Bank is run by conservative Americans. It's out of Oklahoma. The website is, you get a hold of them, oldglorybank.com. All right, it's in Durant, Oklahoma. Executives from that bank are in D.C. today testifying in front of something. I don't even know what it is because I don't really care. What I'm doing there in this segment is, in the Smart Life segment, is giving you another option. That's what I do many times in Smart Life. Not telling you to do anything, buy anything, go anywhere. It doesn't matter to me. You're smart enough to know where you're putting your money. But if you're dissatisfied with your bank, if you feel there is a political component to it, check out oldglorybank.com. And let me know how it goes. Thank you for watching the No Spin News. To watch the full episode anytime on BillO'Reilly.com, please sign up to become a premium or concierge member. Visit BillO'Reilly.com to sign up and start watching today.